Welcome to Photoshop 101, getting familiar with the Photoshop Workspace and the tools that they have in Photoshop CC or CS. Okay, it doesn't matter if you're using Photoshop CS6, CS5, CS4. What we're doing tonight, majority of the tools, all those versions have, and the setup of the workspace is pretty much the same. So we're going to go over that. All right. If you're having any delay in the audio and visual, it's more than likely on your end. I'm in an area that's got incredible high-speed internet. So double check and see what all is streaming. Like if you're at my house, my kids are streaming online gaming and streaming Netflix and what have you, so things can get slow. So maybe check what you've got streaming. Get a couple of those kids to get off those devices and or out of those programs so that you can stream the audio and visual and have them sync up, because that's what happens sometimes if it doesn't match up, if my audio is delayed from what you're seeing. All right, so if you do happen to have the notes, and if you don't, that's okay, because I'm gonna show you this. So if you look at my screen right now, it may not look like yours. I have all these little icons here. I might be missing some panels over here. So it may not look just like yours. And the color, maybe the color looks different. But this is Photoshop CC 2014. If you're using Photoshop CC, just the regular, it's really the same. It's the same thing. They had some quirks with some different devices, so they came out with two just in case people had compatibility issues. So I'm going to reset and then show you how to customize your own. So I'm going to go to Window and then Workspace, and I'm going to reset Amanda's workspace. All right, come on now. I want to reset it. Or maybe we'll make a new one. It should reset this for me. And it is not resetting it. That's interesting. All right, I'll delete it. I did another video before and created that, and it's not even let me do that. I'll make a new workspace. All right. I want to reset my panels. All right, this is hilarious. Why it's not letting me reset? All right. I'll have to do it by hand here. See if I can get it to close up. So normally, each of your little icons are not showing until you make them show. So I'm going to close them all. This is on my Mac, and I don't know why it's doing this, because on my PC I reset it all the time. It's very interesting. So I can't remember what is the default over here. It's just a couple that are the default, which I was trying to get it to show, and it is not letting me. That is very interesting. So we're going to go over the panels and start customizing, recustomizing, since I can't reset it. The basic layout, okay, of your Photoshop. So if you've installed Photoshop, you probably have gotten the hang of a few things, the tools. Hopefully you're using the layers panel, all right? Now, if you want to have things very accessible to you, that is the time to start customizing, just so it's quick. It doesn't have to. You don't have to customize your workspace, but you can, all right? So we're going to go through the panels and the different things you can do with them one at a time. First, if you have the notes quickly that I showed, it's I'm going to redo the link to get the notes in just a minute, because we have a lot of people still coming in. You'll see that I have it kind of labeled. So this is our layers panel. This is where all the good stuff happens. Okay, all the layers you use to edit are going to take place here. Up here we have our main menu. Okay, you go there to open images, resize images, and we're going to be using that a little bit tonight. Then we have our tools right here. Okay, tools, and these are a lot of very local adjustments. If you're familiar with Lightroom, you have that local adjustment brush, and just a little strip of local adjustments like crop tool, red eye removal, clone heal. Well, these are a lot of very local things as well. So there's a lot more to this that you can use than in Lightroom. And then for every tool, there's an option menu right here. Each tool has its own little menu. And if you watch as I click on the tools, this menu changes. And this little strip right here is something that new Photoshop users miss all the time. They get very confused as to why they see one thing sometimes and another thing another time. And it takes them a while to realize that it's changing because your tool is changing. And this is just a little menu for each tool. So there's so many possibilities inside of Photoshop. There really is. Then over here, which we're going to put back, the standard comes with the history. So we'll pull the history out. I can look on the picture. All right. Standard comes with the history, your default, okay? And we're going to talk about this history panel in a minute. The other thing you probably see in your default setup is this adjustment panel. And then above it, you see a color. Let's see if I can pull that out. There we go. So this is probably what you're seeing, or something that looks like it. It kind of changes. And then this adjustment panel, and then the layers panel. Now, these little icons I had to help me get faster. I'm just going to show you that, and then later I'm going to come back and use these. As you come to Window and you click on some of these, they're going to pop up in this little space right here. So let's say I want my info panel. Okay, I use that a good bit. Actions. People love actions, right? So we want that, and it's just a triangle, like a play button is what it is. Come to Window. So in Note 2, and this is not in the notes, and again, you don't need the notes, okay? So the notes can just be a good refresher for what you learned. But if you ever suddenly the actions disappear, this happened to me when I first started using Photoshop. This was gone. Somehow I had lost it. So I went to the forum I was on. I was like, I've lost my actions. I can't find my actions. And somebody was very patient with me and said, go to Window and click on Actions. There you go. So if you lose a panel, don't worry. It's not deleted from your Photoshop. I promise. You don't need to uninstall and reinstall it. Look at the Window menu. Okay, so go to Window. I did not do that. I don't know why it suddenly moved to that. Okay, what else do I like to have up there? I like my brush, but I don't want to get too much up there and confuse y'all, but I'll stick the brush up there. Okay, so here's just a few. And if you forget what those mean, okay, you can hover over them and the word will show up. See how info, actions, history. You can also click on the side of it, click and drag out, and then the name will appear. All right, so until you get used to that, you can pull that out so that you know what is what. I also like paragraph there and paragraph styles, text, let's see, and brush presets. Now, there's lots of things you can do with these too. You can nest them in together. So I could take info here and drag it and put it up with history. So we have history, info, and actions nested together. So there's all little different combinations you can create. All right. I love that they allow us to make it what works for us. Make it the way that is intuitive to us. And that's what I would encourage you. Put things where you are going to look for them. That's the important thing. I'm going to close down some panels. So if you have some stuff open that you don't like, okay, stuff you don't like, right click on it and choose close. And don't think, well, I'm worried. What if I can't ever get that back? Go up to Window, down to Swatches. Oh, there they are again. Now swatches are handy, but more so in graphics, not really in photo editing. So I like to clean things up as much as possible. So I'm going to close that down. I'm also not going to use libraries here. And styles I tend not to use either. Okay, so I've got adjustments and color there. And what if I want my layers panel here to be even longer? Because sometimes those layers, you can get 15, 20 layers going, and you want to be able to have as much space as possible. So what you can do is click, pull this out. See it? I've got it. I clicked on it, and I'm holding down on my mouse, and I'm going to come over here. And as soon as you see the blue box all the way around it, you can let go. And now they're nested together. They're nested together. Let's say you're working and you're, for whatever reasons, you feel like your layers even need more space. You can pull out your layers and maybe put it over here and then drag it down. So it does not have to be in the place that Adobe first put it. Make it what works for you. And then if you want to put it back, just come over here. I'm going to minimize it here. I'm just put it back right into there. And there we've got layers. All right. I moved it back. There we go. Okay. So click and drag those things around. Same with like info. If you're working on skin tones and you feel like you need this out more often, just click and drag that out. And then you can close this up or use actions or do whatever else you're using. And you can have both open up like that. And then I can nest it back. I'm just going to drag it back over here, put it right back in there. And there we go. All right. So if you lose a panel, where do you go? Windows or window. There's no S on it. It's window. Window at the top. Windows, where you go? If you saw that somebody else was using a panel and you're like, I don't even know what that is. I don't have that on my Photoshop. Where do you go? Window. Window is a wonderful menu. All right. Now let's get into a little bit more of this right-hand side. All right. I'm going to quickly do something. All right. So when we are, and you can save that workspace. It's at the bottom of page 2, which there's no page number. Sorry about that. You can save that workspace. Of course, if you're on a MacBook Air in Adobe Photoshop CC 2014, it may not want to let you mess around with your spaces too much. So we can save it. So once you've got it set up, just click on New Workspace and then title it. Okay. And you can always restart it. Do you have to save it? Do you have to, once you set it all up and you have it all the way you want it, do you have to save it? No. The next time so if you close up Photoshop, the next time you open it up, it will be just like that. But sometimes things are accidentally reset. And so if you'll be heartbroken to have to set it all up again, then go ahead and save it as a workspace. But again, if you didn't do too much to it, then you probably don't need to mess with that because you can always redo it quickly. Okay. So I'm going to kind of go on over. We're going to talk about the layers palette or the layers panel. You hear me call it both because I do. Sorry. Layers palette is the same as layers panel. You might want to, if I'm going to confuse you later, kind of write that down. Palette equals panel. Panel equals palette. And that is where all the editing is going to take place. Okay? Or we hope that's where it's all going to take place. And this is not a workshop about layers. Okay, I can talk for 2-3 hours just on layers. I really could. I have in the past. But that's not tonight. So hopefully you came here with a little bit of knowledge of layers. Many of you probably came in not knowing anything about layers. So let me quickly just give you a visual explanation of what layers are. They're like transparencies. If you're my age, you grew up with transparency machines in school, the projectors, and your teacher would lay down like a base and she'd write with like a dry erase marker and then she'd add another transparency and so on. But when we're looking at it from our seats, it was all we could see was like one big picture. We couldn't see the individual transparencies. All right. If you're younger than me and you've never seen a projector, overhead projector, go Google that and you'll see what I'm talking about. So we add layers, okay? Layers, but we're always looking from the top down, top down. We hope to have a workshop or a webinar class on layers coming up, so stay tuned. It's really good, and we talk all about layers, really in depth. So I'm gonna give you a quick overview of the layers panel, okay? So down here, we have some options that we're going to come back to in just a minute. Well, yes, we're going to do one thing and then we're going to come back to it. So I'm going to create an adjustment layer just quickly. All right, got that there. So this is an adjustment layer. Then we're going to make a blank layer by clicking on the little icon with a corner folded up, okay? And then I'm going to click on this background and make a duplicate copy, okay? And there's multiple ways to do this. Honestly, in Photoshop and in Lightroom, there's always multiple ways to do anything. So it can be confusing to new users if they hear, you hear me say one thing and then you go read a tutorial and they do something else. And you're like, but wait a minute, Amanda said this and so-and-so said this, which one's right? Well, we probably both are because there's multiple ways to do anything in Photoshop. So I'm going to make a duplicate copy. I'm going to do it easy. I'm going to do a right click and choose duplicate layer, okay? There's other ways. You can click on the background again and do Command J on a Mac or Control J as in Jack in the Box, okay? Command J or Control J, that does it as well. That's actually the one I use the most. And then there you can also click on the background and drag to the new layer and do it again. So there you go. There's 3 ways. There's actually 2 more ways that you can do it, but we'll just delete a couple of these. So we have 1. So those, we have our layers that we're going to talk about in just a minute. Then we have this mask right here, okay? Mask, which we can use to conceal or reveal changes. The duplicate copy or the pixel layer, you'll hear me call it a pixel layer because there's actually pixels there, can have a mask as well, and so can a blank layer. This is just an empty layer. There's nothing there. We could have 50 of these and see no changes, see no additional increase to our file size or anything. It's just empty. So it's just a new layer. It's just blank. This is almost a mathematical adjustment to the file. Adjustment layers are. And I'm going to talk about the beauty of those in a minute. And then this, if we turn these other layers off, these little eyeballs are the visibility, if we can see it or not see it. So here we can't see those layers. And I'm going to hide our original picture, our background. But we still see it, don't we? Because I created a copy of it in the layers. So I call that a pixel layer because we actually have pixels that we can manipulate on this layer. So I call that a pixel layer. Okay, so I'm going to turn these back on. Now, I talked about this being a mask. And notice that this layer does not have a mask and this layer does not have a mask. But we can add a mask to it by coming down here to this little menu down here. And it's the rectangle with a circle in the middle. So if I click on it, it adds a mask. I can do the same to this layer. So all layers can have a mask on them, all of them, okay? Textures, skies, overlays, duplicate layers, they all can have mask. Only one type of layer comes with a mask, and that is the adjustment layers. But that's okay. The other layers, we can add a mask to it. And we'll talk about why you would want a mask in just a minute. All right. It's hard because I kind of have to show you the big, it's kind of like doing a puzzle. You know, we can't put the pieces together unless we see the big picture. And so I'm showing you the big picture of what we're going to be working on a little bit more and on into other classes. Okay, so this is building. This is the foundation. All right. Now, up at the top here, so we have these little, this little bottom menu, I call it, down here. And we can also throw things into the trash can, but you can also just hit delete on your keyboard to throw a thing away. Up here, we have a bunch of stuff. We're not going to get into any of these at all tonight, or any of this down here at the the bottom of this, but we're going to talk about the middle. So where it says normal, if you click on that, those are your blend modes. When I was first learning, I started out learning Photoshop Elements 7, and I was reading Scott Kelby's book, and I was trying to do it, and he mentioned changing the blend mode. I think I hunted for 3 hours. Where is the blend mode? I can't find the blend mode. I was crying. And it took me forever. It's right here, but it doesn't say blend mode, does it? So these are your blend modes. And if some of them you'll use more often than others. So the ones that I use the most in photo editing are multiply, screen, overlay, and soft light. Okay? Those are the ones I use the most in photo editing. And you actually probably can find tutorials online, old tutorials, talking about a color pop with soft light. So I'll do that. I'm gonna click on this background right here. So you see the blue? That is showing me that that's the layer. By clicking on it, I've told Photoshop, hey, this is the layer I want to manipulate. This is the layer I want to change. All right, so I'm gonna come up here and I'm gonna change it to soft light. So see what happened to my picture? The colors got more intense. It darkened a little bit, but a big color change. I mean, just really intensified it. So I told you can find tutorials online that are old, like 7, 8, 9 years old. I don't know if the internet's been around that long. I think it has, but I don't know if Photoshop tutorials have been around that much. That show doing a duplicate copy with a soft light blend mode. But I don't recommend doing it that way. There is a different way to do that. Okay. Oh, the last thing here I want to show you is the opacity. So this is your layer opacity. And this is allowing us to say, okay, Photoshop, I really like this, but it's too much. I need to back it down a little bit. So you can click on the little arrow and drag the slider down. Or if you only have a little way to go, you can just hover over the word opacity, and you see a little finger comes up with a side-to-side sign. So you can just click and drag over the word opacity. Now I'll do it that way if I only have a little bit to go, but if I'm going to reduce it down to like 20%, then I'm going to go to the slider and pull it down. Or else I'm going opacity slide, opacity slide, opacity slide to go all the way down. So if you have a long way to go, use the slider. If you're a little way, just use the word opacity. Okay. The background. Let's talk about the background for just a minute. People get confused about the background. When you open the picture, so you come into Photoshop and you've gone File, Open, and you opened a picture. That is your background. But now, I'm going to make a few changes. I'm just going to do a couple things here. All right. So now, if I flatten it, I'm going to do really easy flatten, layer, and flatten. Well, now my background is different from the straight out of the camera image, isn't it? So my background is no longer the original. It's just a way of, so I told you, thinking about layers like a projector, like the transparencies of an overhead projector. Well, once you flatten it, it's like you've put it into a vise and you've gone and you scrunched them together and super glued them. Well, not super glued because we can't undo it, but we've gotten them good and stuck together. So this is our new background. We haven't saved it yet. We haven't, we're never going to overwrite the file, but this is just a new base for us to build on. Okay. So when you flatten, so if you're taking notes or adding to the notes that we have for you, you might put flatten, and I did fail to put about flattening. Flatten equals creating a new base, okay? Coming to a new base level to build on. Now I said you can undo it. How can you undo this? Well, in Lightroom, if you're a Lightroom user, you probably know that Command Z or Control Z on your keyboard will undo a step. So we can do that, right? But what if you flattened and did a few more things and you're like, oh, I wish I could go back to those layers. I wish I hadn't done that. So you're going to have to go Command Z, Command Z, Command Z, Command Z, Command Z until you get back there. Or you can use your history panel, okay? Your history panel. And this gives us a running tally of what you've done. I keep talking about Lightroom versus Photoshop, don't I? Well, we have a lot of people who have been longtime Lightroom users who now also have Photoshop because of the cloud and the photographer package that Adobe offers. So that's why I keep talking about the similarities and differences. Here's a difference. Lightroom keeps their history and it's forever. So if you have 200 steps in your history in Lightroom, it's there. But in Photoshop, it's limited. Okay, so once you hit the maximum, it's going to start getting rid of older steps. All right, that makes sense? It's going to start getting rid of older steps. How you can change that, so you can increase that size or decrease that size, go to your preferences folder. I haven't talked about preferences before yet, have I? And it's not in your notes, so you might want to jot this down. You go to, on a PC, you go to Edit and then down to Preferences. It's going to be down here towards the bottom. And on a Mac, it's Photoshop. Click on the word Photoshop and go to Preferences. Oh, come on. I'm just going to do General. Okay. Then you're going to go to, let's see, is it File Handling? This recent file list contains, this is in terms of opening recent files, opening recent pictures, okay? This is not your history. All right, here it is. It's under your performance, okay? Performance. And history states, so you can increase it or decrease it. Now, the more you increase it, the more strain it's going to put on your computer. So make sure you have plenty of free space, which I don't have a whole lot because my internal hard drive is so small on this MacBook Air. So I'm not going to increase it. But if you have a super duper mega computer, then you can increase those history states and see more of your history. While I have my preferences open, you might also be saying, Amanda, how is your Photoshop light gray? Because mine is a very dark, dark, dark gray. And I would like to change it to be like your light gray. How you do that is go to the interface, okay? And you see color thing. So it probably looks like that. That's what yours looks like, right? So you can make it even darker, almost black. You can make it super light, or you can kind of make it just that. It just depends. So you can customize it that way too. Oh, this is where I should have come for Restore Default Workspace. See, on my PC, I can just go to Window and reset Workspace, and it resets it. So PC users, you have it easier. Mac, you're going to come here to reset your whole workspace. All right. Okay, so history. I was talking about the history, right? So if let's say I flatten this. Let's go to Layer, Flatten, and then I do a couple more things. So let's say I throw this out and I doodle with that, and I do something else, curves, something else. And I go back to my history, and I might say, I really wish I could just go back to before I flattened. So all I have to do is come up here and click on the step before flatten. So there we are. It's unflattened. The other thing you can do, which you see up here, is you can make a snapshot. Just like in Lightroom. The snapshots are just a lot, well, they're very alike. They're not exactly alike. Okay, so you make a snapshot by just clicking the little camera, and it's going to show up here. So here I might do just a testing snapshot. And this is my clean edit. There we go. So they're a moment in time, and I can go back and forth to other ones. I love using the snapshot. It's a big thing for me. Very, 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 very handy. Okay. History panel. Okay, I've gone through that. Wish I had page numbers on this thing. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm on page 4 if you have the notes. If you don't, again, no worries. It's really, everything I'm saying is pretty much on the notes. When I've said jot this down, it's not on the notes, so you're good to go. The adjustment panel. So you see me coming down here to this circle that's half black, half white, and clicking on it and creating things. And that's just a habit, because in Photoshop Elements, that was really the only way to do it. So that's just how my habit, it's just where I started. My roots were in Elements, and I moved into Photoshop a couple years later. So I just got the habit of clicking on the circle that's half black, half white, and it gives the list of all the adjustment layers available. But if you come up here in Photoshop, they have a very, very handy panel called Adjustments, and you can add an adjustment layer just by clicking on it. So I could say, all right, I want a curves layer. So I just click, and there it is, creates the curves adjustment layer for me. So all of these are available down here at the bottom, but not everything that's in the menu here is available up here. So I did a little line. So if you have the notes now, or if you have them later, again, don't be alarmed if you don't have the notes. No alarms. You're good, I promise. You will notice later, or now, that I have outlined, have done like a little video game track almost around some of these, okay? And that is just showing the ones that you will tend to use the most in photo editing, okay? So I've outlined those that you will use most in photo editing, and then I boxed in the ones at the bottom that you will use the most with editing as well. So don't worry about what those other ones are. If you're in here and you're saying, oh, you use Channel Mixer with photo editing, yes, but very rarely for our level, okay? If we're not doing commercial stuff, you don't often have to use Channel Mixer, so I left that one alone. And if you know that, you probably are more advanced than most people in here, and this was for beginners. All right, so there's 2 ways you can create an adjustment layer. Actually, there's 3, 4, but we won't go there. But I told you there's multiple ways to do everything in Photoshop. We will do a little bit of curves and levels in just a minute when I do an edit. Okay, the last panel I want to show you before we go into tools is the action panel, okay? So here we have the action panel, and how you install actions, there's 2 ways to install actions. The first and easiest way is when you download a set and you unzip it, which everybody has to do, or your browser may unzip it as it downloads, so don't be alarmed if it comes unzipped, because it was unzipped in the process. It is sold zipped, I promise. Go into the folder that says whatever, like Velvet, Luxe Velvet Matte, and then just do a double click on the action file name, and it will open up Photoshop and install your action like that. It's perfect. It's beautiful. Or you can open up Photoshop, and then up here in the top right-hand corner, there is a little triangle with some lines. Click on that and go down to Load Actions. And then your Mac Finder or your Windows Explorer will open up, and you're going to navigate to that folder we just talked about that you downloaded, and you're going to click on the folder and then hit Load. It's very, very easy. Now, once you load them, you have to click on the little triangle beside it. Then you see the individuals, okay? And then all you do is say, maybe click on one and hit play. All right? Oops, I should have run it on the background. Let's go back to history. All right. There we go. See, and if it's too heavy, okay, this is a matte look. So remember, these are all matte actions. And plus, the image is a little dark to start with. We needed to brighten it up. So there's a couple things you can do when you're running actions. First, do a clean edit first. That's what I always recommend. Like, do a snapshot. Do your clean edit first, because these were built to run off of clean images. We'll talk about what a clean edit means in just a minute. So what we can do is hit the little triangle and go through and say, okay, what is darkening this so much? And maybe we want to lower that down. Or if we see one that says light, we can increase that one that says light. Oops. Okay. Oh, I've got the whole group thing going. Okay. So that's soft light. That's why that's that color pop, which darkens it. You can also come up to the matte and say, that's a little too much matte for me, and pull it down. Reduce the matte a little bit. All right. The other thing you can do is reduce it as a whole, as the whole action, the group. So you can reduce the action in just one layer opacity. Then we can always add, see, I always come down here just to have it. You can always add an adjustment layer and brighten it up. And so this is one way I often brighten things up, is I create a layer and then change the blend mode to screen. And I'm going to lower the layer opacity. Okay. To see a before and after, if you hover over the background eyeball, which is the visibility, and hold down your Alt key or Option key on a Mac and click, so there's before and there's after. Okay, so that's if you want a matte, hazy matte look. So that's how you run actions. And it didn't work that first time because of how where it was. I needed to be on the background layer to run it. Okay, tools. So let's go back and let's do. I think that was honey that I ran. Okay. The toolbar. I can't go through all of them tonight. Just can't. But I do want to show you some important ones. One is the crop tool. Okay. This is very misunderstood tool. So what I love about the crop tool in Photoshop and in Lightroom is that I love Lightroom's crop because it's always non-destructive, always. You can always get back to your original canvas if you need it. So what you're seeing right now is the original canvas, the image that we're seeing, the whole canvas, okay? So all the pixels is the canvas. In Photoshop, you can accidentally choose to delete those. If you come up here and have delete cropped pixels, then it's going to get rid of them and you won't be able to get them back. So I'm going to show you both ways. All right. So I got the crop tool. Do I want the original ratio, which is how it was shot? Most images are shot like at a 4:6 ratio. Not that they're 4:6 in size, but that ratio. Okay, a 2:3 ratio. You can also, if you click on where it says original ratio, you can also click on like a 5:7. So okay, we want to do a 5:7. But it's turning this into a portrait 5:7. Well, what if I don't want it that way? Then see the little arrows? Just click it so it'll flip it back the other way. Now I'm going to click and drag on a corner. And maybe we want it to be like this. Okay, we say, okay, good, good, good. I like this. And right now I'm showing the rule of thirds. There's different grids that you can show by clicking on this little patchwork looking icon. Click on it, and then you can choose a golden ratio, golden spiral, just a grid. I keep it on rule of thirds, but that's just my habit, all right? And then I'm gonna hit the check mark to commit. So now I've cropped it. But what if I say, if I'm editing later, I'm like, oh man, I don't think I should have cropped it that way. Let me go back to it. And we'll come back in here and maybe do, let's just maybe a little tighter, okay? Look, my pixels showed back up. My original canvas, the pixels from the original photo pop back up. They're still available to me. So I might say, I really want to see more of the trees. I shouldn't have done that. So let's do it this way. All right. Then I hit check. But if I choose to delete the crop pixels, and then later I come back to crop something else, all right? Oh. All right, it should not let me come back. It's deleting the crop pixels. And now, there we go. So this time when I did it the second time, it's gone. It was a spoof the first time. It's not giving me my original canvas, is it? We can always go back in time. What if you've done it way down the line and you're going to have to go back with your history, and you're going to lose those edits. You're going to lose those steps. So be careful about that and make sure that you have this unchecked, okay? You don't want to have delete crop pixels checked. So the crop tool is one you want to be careful, but I love it because it's non-destructive. It's going to let us keep those the original canvas, have be accessible to it. All right. Then one you should know about, because it's a very quick and easy way to do a watermark, is the text tool, okay, the type tool. And whatever's in your foreground will show up, or if you've picked a color here. But I'll just click on it, and let's say so you can type your studio name or what have you. Do not copy. I'm going to change it to a white. So now we can't really see it. I'm going to move it down here, something like that. You can also increase the size. So once you have it here, you can lower the opacity so it looks more transparent. And I would do it bigger, maybe your web address, something like that. But people who are overwhelmed with creating a watermark, just use the type tool. It's really, really, really easy. All right. I mentioned this little color palette here. So we have a color here, and I know why. It's the color for under eye circles, actually, or the one right below it. But typically you're going to want those colors to be black and white. How to quickly get it to black and white is hit D on your keyboard. D for default. That's not in your notes. I forgot to put the keyboard shortcuts on the notes. I will amend that. So D for default. If you just click D on your keyboard, it's going to make your color go to black and white. Now, if you want white on top, so whatever is on top is what your brush is going to do. And this is not a Brush 101 or Mask 101 class, but I'll quickly show you. So whatever is this foreground color is what will brush. So now I changed it to white by hitting X on my keyboard, but you can also hit the little arrows, okay? So whatever is on top is the color that your brush is going to apply. When we're working with masks, okay, when we're working with masks, it's different. This black will hide our change, and the white will reveal our change. So I'll go into that, I guess, now. All right. Let's start doing just a small edit here, and this will explain the brush. I do kind of have the tools described. Oh, before I go, if you notice, there's a little triangle at the bottom right-hand corner of most of them. See that? Click and drag out, and you'll see the different options. So some tools are actually several tools nested together. The here we go, the spot healing brush. We got the patch tool. So whatever you use last in that group of tools will be what shows there. And you're wondering probably why that one, the spot healing brush, will actually prefer the spot healing brush to the patch tool majority of the time. And so that's why you're going to see that there. But the patch tool is very, very, and we'll talk about that in another class. Not today. I can't tackle everything today. Another one that I kind of get crazy with is the lasso tool. And hopefully you'll find out why in later ones, but I can have to tell myself, okay, step away from the lasso. If anybody's coming over from Everyday Elements, which was a blog I used to run, and you've attended or read any of my blog posts there, you probably are laughing because you probably heard me say that. Step away from the lasso tool, Amanda. And once I show you that later, it will make sense why I can get carried away. Okay, so the brush. Brush is the tool that you will use the most in photo editing. It'll just be the one you use the most. You can always have your brush handy and you're using it. And to activate that tool, just hit B on your keyboard, okay? That's a keyboard shortcut, B. Be careful. Just know that not all the keyboard shortcuts that work in Lightroom work in Photoshop. Okay, some of them are the same and some are not the same. So just be cognizant of that. And remember that as you use different tools, this tool option menu changes. So here we are in the brush mode. Now, I want you to make sure and write this down. But I do, and there's blog posts about these as well. I'll try and get out there, get those posted in the Lux Photoshop group. But when you're using the brush, majority of the time, you want this mode in normal. And people used to contact me all the time saying, my brush is broke. I have tried everything. Do I need to uninstall and reinstall Photoshop Elements or Photoshop? And a person's brush not working is usually one of two things. One, they have the caps lock on. So see my brush, it's a circle. And if I hit the caps lock on, let's do something here. All right. And well, that's interesting. It's not even letting me. There we go. I hit the caps lock. It took me like 3 times on my laptop. My keys must be not working right today. So see the little crosshairs? So that can happen. I'm going to undo it so we got our brush back. Also, their blend mode. Let's say somehow it got changed to darken or something else. And I'll tell you a funny story. When I was learning Photoshop Elements, somehow my brush mode got changed and I could not get back to normal. And it didn't have this little triangle. Okay, it just had that. It stopped right there, and it stopped right above darken or whatever it was. It didn't show me that there was more options above it. So I'm telling you what, I searched the internet. How do you get your normal blend mode or normal brush mode back? I mean, it was awful. And all I realized is I just needed to scroll upward, and there it is, normal. So normal, look for it in case if your brush stops working, you can do that. You can also reset your tools. Sometimes just things get out of kink, they just get out of whack, and you can reset your tools. All right. And gosh, let's see. My Mac's a little different. Your tools, let's see. Reset tool presets. Okay. See the little, it's like a little wrench and a screwdriver. I went to my window, down to tool presets, and reset tool presets. So that sometimes resetting the tools will get things working back right, because they can get kind of out of sync. All right, so let's do a quick edit. And I have the list and steps for a quick edit. And I really wish I could have gone more in depth. I try to keep it very simple. There are lots of tutorials online at rocktheshot.com and Everyday Elements. There are lots of tutorials on clean edits. Now let me explain what a clean edit is. A clean edit is helping an image look the best it can be, but still look like it came out of the camera that way. So that when people look at it, they say, man, you have a great camera. Oh, how many of us have heard that? Instead of saying, man, you're a brilliant photographer. That is a gorgeous picture. I had somebody tell me that just today. Man, your camera is awesome. I just don't say anything anymore. But, and this is not my picture, by the way. This is a Jessie Blake photography picture. So you want it to look the best it can look and have people think it really came out of the camera that way, instead of having people look at it and say, that looks photoshopped. You've gone too far. You want, when people say that, you want it to look as good as it can be, but still look like it came out of the camera, and that's a clean edit. And I'm not talking about like the creative ones, like a black and white or an urban. Those are perfect, and those have their place. They really do. But a clean edit is just making it look like it came out of the camera that way. So let's do a quick clean edit. So let me delete what I just did. So in the notes, I give just a few steps. I'm going to create a levels adjustment. If you're in Photoshop, curves will work just as well. We're going to have a workshop on levels and curves. So look forward to that. So I'm going to do levels first, and then I'll do curves as well. With levels, you're going to take the black slider and drag it into the base of this little histogram mountain. I always leave this white one alone, okay? Unless it's way far off, but still, I just tend to leave it alone. And what I like to use is the gray slider. It's your midtones. And if you move the gray slider to the left, it brightens. And if you move it to the right, it darkens. So I'm going to brighten it up. Now, if I start to get a little bit of haze, what I'll do is pull my blacks back in a little bit. Okay, so I've given it a little bit of a color pop. Okay, see that? Now I'm going to hide it so we no longer see it. It's invisible. And let's create a curves. Now with curves, curves is well known. People will say, I want curves. Or sometimes they get Photoshop just so they can have curves. Curves is famous. Curves and levels are sisters. So if you come into this already known levels and you like it, keep with it, okay? Or they're sisters or brothers, you know, whatever you want them to be. All right, so with curves, you've heard the S pop probably. And if you haven't, well, there you go, the S curve. And how you do it is you're just going to click on the line somewhere about here. These are our highlights. Okay, so I'm brightening it up. See, I'm pulling up. If I pull down, it darkens. So I'm going to pull it up a little bit. Now I'm going to come down here. These are our shadows, and click and drag down a little bit. Now, the more I drag down, the richer and darker those colors get, right? But we don't want to get, I got to click it. There we go. Now, if I need to brighten the midtones a little more, I'm going to pull this up. Oh, I went too far. There we go. Pull it back up. Pull this back up. Something is not looking right. Let me start that back over. There we go. Yeah, something happened. I don't know what happened. So you can brighten it up, give it a color pop. Curves can take a while to get the hang of. So just keep trying. Sometimes they need a very slight curve. It doesn't need as much of a curve. Some need a much more significant S to it. So some just have barely an S, and some have more significant where you can really see the S curve. So like I said, I tend to prefer the levels, and so I'm going to go with that one. And we'll play with curves again later. Okay, so we've got that. Now I'm going to do a color pop. And let's just do another levels, but change nothing in the histogram area there that you're seeing. I'm not going to change anything. But I'm going to change the blend mode. So before with that old-fashioned color pop with the duplicate layer and a soft light blend mode, remember our blend modes are right here where you say normal. I'm going to click on normal and go to soft light. So now it's pretty intense, isn't it? Let's talk about masks. This is quick little overview of mask. White, just like a white brush reveals, a white mask is revealing the whole change. It's letting us see it all. But if we switch it to a black mask, it's going to hide it all. So I'm going to switch it by hitting Command I or Control I for invert, Control I on a PC, Command I on a Mac. So now it's hiding it. The change is underneath this mask, okay? And it's hiding it. We're going to use a brush, a white brush. Remember, the color of our brush is the color that's in our foreground. And now, wherever I stroke over with my mouse will show the change. We have a little more flexibility in Photoshop than we do in Lightroom because we can adjust the layer opacity, but we can also adjust the brush opacity, so we can do both. So maybe I don't want to see all of the change. I just want to see, some of the change. Now it is cumulative, so if I keep clicking and dragging back over, it will eventually become 100%. And you can see where I brushed. See where it's kind of become white? Okay. And we can, you can label your layers. Okay. Now we can also brighten like I did before. Oh, see, I'm coming down here, it's habit. And if I want to brighten just overall globally quickly, do a screen and then bring it way down. Now, what if I only want her brightened and really not this background? Well, here I'm going to show you how to use the black brush to conceal. So the white brush revealed what was underneath the black mask. Now we've got a white mask, which is saying, hey, look at me. You can see all the change. I'm not hiding anything. We can use a black brush. I'm going to hit X. And now we've got a black brush. And now, oops, I wanted to brighten her. I'm going to hide it. Yeah, I'm going to hide all this. Okay, so I'm hiding this. Kind of lost track of what I was doing. So now I only want her to be brightened. Okay, so there we go. Before and after. Now let's do very few quick things to her, okay? I'm going to probably be too quick, and I know you're going to say, oh, but you're moving too fast. And I'm sorry, but this is being recorded, and we'll be able to share it with you. So I'm going to zoom in, Command plus or Control plus on a PC, okay? And I'm going to brighten up her eyes just a little bit, okay? And I'm going to use that screen mode again. I'm going to hide it, Command I, Control I. Make my brush smaller. How I'm making my brush bigger or smaller is the bracket keys next to the letter P on my keyboard. So if you look at your keyboard, letter P, those to the right and left, just to the right of the P, there's a left bracket key and a right bracket key. The right bracket key makes it bigger and the left bracket key makes it smaller. And now I'm just going to brush with a white brush over her eyes. Just brighten those eyes a little bit. Okay. Now I am going to do the easiest under eye circle fix ever. You can Google that. Not Google. You probably Google it and you come up with everyday elements. So Google easiest under eye circle fix ever. And there's a post I did at Everyday Elements. And this is super easy. I'm going to do it very quick. So I'm going to test the skin. And I'm going to paint on this color. So remember I said whatever's in your foreground is the color that gets applied. And that's exactly what's going to happen right now. So what we're doing is I'm kind of just making it this way. I'm going to do eye. I'm going to sample right here. Let's do right here. Now I'm brushing on this color to hide her under eye circles. But I want to lower the layer opacity so it blends in with her skin. Okay. Now I want to smooth her skin. And I'm just going to come to the base and do a duplicate layer here, but it's not necessarily what I would do, but this is an easy way to do it. So when you're smoothing skin, you need pixels to smooth. We need her skin pixels to smooth. So that's why I had to make a duplicate copy. And what we're going to do is blur it with, and I'm going to do it by going to Filter and Noise and then Median. But there's some that use Gaussian blur. There's lots of different ways to blur the skin. So this is just one way. And it's too much. It is, right? And I know it. That's okay. We're going to fix it. All right, so now our image is blurry. I'm going to add a mask. Come down here at the bottom. I'm going to add a mask. I want it to be black, so I'm going to hit Command I. All right, there are shortcuts. If anybody's in here saying, well, I know how to make it a black right away, there are, but I'm keeping it really simple. There are lots of little shortcuts for that, but we're going to keep it simple. So add a mask and hit Command I. And now, remember, we're going to use that white brush so we can see the blurriness underneath it. But maybe we don't want all of the blurriness. We just want, 68% of the blurriness. So now I'm just going to brush. I'm clicking on my mouse and holding down. And you might start brushing and say, oh, that's still too much. But that's okay because we've got our layer opacity also, okay? So I'm staying away from her eyes and her lips. Just kind of getting here and there. You might also reduce it a little bit more and get some of her neck and chest. All right, now I'm going to reduce the layer opacity as well. Sometimes it's just a combination. Okay, you want to pull it back to where you can still see skin texture. All right, and it still looks like it could come out of camera this way, and it does. It does look like that. So we've pulled it back. Okay, whoops. Sorry about that. So now we'll see before and after. There's before. And there's after. And we'll back up some more. Before, after. She has a little bit of halo, and I could correct that, but I don't have time. I'm running out of time. So once your edit is done, but wait, what if you say, I'm running out of time and I'm not doing my edit? What do I do? I'm going to lose all my changes, but I'm not done yet. You can save it as a PSD. That is not in your notes, so you do want to write it down, PSD. And how you save it as a PSD is leave your layers open. Don't flatten, no flattening. And then go to File, Save As, okay? And it's going to come up here, and I'm going to save it as a PSD, all right? And on a Mac, it's just going to say Photoshop. On a PC, it's going to say a PSD. So here we have the file ending PSD, and that's good. And I'll make sure I have my layers checked and hit save. So a month from now, I could open this file back up, and my layers are there. And I can tweak them and change them and reduce some down or whatever, you know, and then save it. So now that I've saved it as PSD, I'm going to flatten it. Layer, flatten. There's different ways to flatten, but that's the one we're going to do. And now if we wanted to run, I'm going to save it as a clean edit, okay? File, Save As. Oh. That's interesting. It's currently being saved in the background. Try this operation again after save has been completed. My Photoshop is running slow. So save it, and I usually add something at the end that says like edit or clean, okay? And then I'll run any actions I want to run on it. So let's say I want, you know, to run a different action, like maybe confetti. And so that's what I'll do is I will run, do clean edit. There we go. I'm lowering down the one group opacity. You can also open it up and then come in here and say, okay, that's a little bit too much matte, so we'll back down on that. All right. And we can also say, okay. And you just turn off each one and say, that needs to come down a little bit. So that's how you tailor an action to your image, is open it up and just kind of turn on and turn off each layer and see what it's doing. Well, we definitely need that one, right? Okay, I like that. All right, huge tweak. All right, think I'm good there. And then I can save this as a creative. All right, so let me come back to, let's say, this clean edit right here. Oh. Okay, this is a different one I had done. It's not as colorful. Oops, not as colorful as the one I just did. It's a little softer edit, not as sharp of color. I would flatten it. And if we want to sharpen for print, I'm running out of time. It's in the notes. Filter, other, and then high pass. I'm going to do about 3 or 4 for print. Okay. Whoops. Make a duplicate layer. I did not talk about why we don't edit on the background, because this is not a layers thing, but don't edit on the background. And some things you can't do. All right, so this is a way to sharpen. Soft light, blend mode with the high pass filter. There's also the unsharp mask. There's other sharpen filters in there. So there's lots of ways to sharpen. Find the one that you like and go with it. Now, if you want to share this on the web, you don't want to share a full-size file because those are printable. And if you're sharing your full-size files on like Facebook for your clients or whatever, they can just download those and print them. Why do they need you, to order pictures for them? So you want to resize it. And an easy way to resize for the web is go image size. All right. Then we're going to change this resolution to 72. And then you can change the width. So say, your portfolio, online portfolio only allows 1,000. So you can change that to 1,000. You can also increase it as well, and it's okay too. And then hit OK. So now it's much smaller. And we would sharpen just like we did before. Make a duplicate copy, filter, other, high pass. But now, this is too much. When you start to see color through the filter, you've gone too far. So web sharpening, anywhere from 1 to 2. Change it to soft light. The steps are in your thing. Now, this is too much. Can y'all tell this is too much? She looks her hair is a little crunchy, her face is a little too, So if it's a little too much, just lower the layer opacity down. Okay, that's much better. So don't be alarmed. Don't feel like you have to start over if your sharpening's too extreme. Just lower that layer opacity. Now, if it's really too much, like you had a filter of 30, yeah, start over. But if it's just a little bit too much, then just lower the layer opacity down. Okay, and then you're going to save, flatten, and save as, and I usually put web at the end. We'll see if it'll let me save now. All right, yeah, JPEG, and I usually put something like web at the end. You want the quality of either 10, 11, or 12. Okay, 10, 11, or 12. Quality just means how much data is hanging along with that file. That's all that means. Okay, how much data is hanging with that file. So 10, 11, or 12 will be fine. So let's see. This particular snapshot I had, I did not crop to the 5:7, but I'm going to go back in time before the resize. All right. So we have our original canvas here, and we're going to crop, and she's asking, do you have to crop? So if you want to give a client a 4:6 and a 5:7 and an 8:10 and an 11:16, do you have to crop each one? Well, if you want those exact sizes, yes, you do have to crop each one. And you would go through and say, well, they came out of the ratio of 4:6. See, it's the 2:3 ratio. Oops. Okay, but you can always like crop for composition. So if the composition isn't just right, then you can crop it for composition. You do there, and you can save that once you crop. So your crop comes before you sharpen. All right, write that down. Crop, then sharpen. Because the sharpening is going to be more, you're going to need a stronger sharpen on an 8:10 than you're going to need on a 4:6. So crop, then sharpen. You can run actions that will make that faster. Okay, and there are some actions available at Lux, and they'll make that process really fast for you to resize and sharpen. And the other thing, so we could do 4:6, and then what I would do, because I've had to do this, I name each one at the end, 4:6, you know, such and such, 4:6, such and such, the file name, then 4:6, file name, 5:7, file name, 8:10. However, there is an alternative to this, okay? So I backed up by doing Command Z or Control Z. What you can do is do oops, I don't want ratio, I want 15:11. All right. That's not what I wanted to do. Sorry. It is a little different on my MacBook. All right. I want to change it to be 15:11 because what that does is make it very similar to an 8:10. Let me illustrate this. So a 4:5 is this. So we see we're losing, let's lose off one side. So we're losing a lot off of one side. So if you gave them a 4:6 ratio and they sent that to print, they may lose a lot. Well, what if like it's a baby and their feet is over here or the head or whatever? Some part of it might get cropped off that the client was really unhappy about. Versus like a 5:7. Why does it keep, I don't know. Less is going to be cropped off. A 15:11 is what I want. I'm going to change it right here. So I want 15 tab 11. There we go. At 15:11, we see we don't lose as much as 8:10, but a little bit more than a 5:7. So this is what we're losing for a 4:6 ratio. An 8:10, we'd lose a lot. 5x7, a little bit less. So it's an in between. So the client would lose less. So if you just gave them a 15x11, and what I did was I'm just in ratio and I have 15x11, you can save that as a preset, crop preset, as you saw. The way that it first went about it was wrong for me, but this is doing a 3:2. Save that, but a 15x11 will give them where they lose a little bit with each one, but not as much as if you just gave them the 4x6. Right? So if you have pictures that really won't matter if they lose a little bit of an edge, a 15x11 crop is going to be more suitable. So that's why I said yes and no. I'm sorry. There's not any way to do that in Lightroom either. Whoops. Okay, let's see. How do you get back to Lightroom? Okay, so Hazel said, how do you get back to Lightroom? If you started in Lightroom, okay, if I started in Lightroom, let me go to Lightroom really quick, and let me come up here. So let's say I started, let me edit in Photoshop. Actually, let me back out. Let me do that again. Let's say we're here in, if you're in Lightroom and you want to take it to Photoshop, then this is, usually you're at this place. That's why I want to show you it from here. Usually you're in the develop mode while you go edit in and then Photoshop. So we have it in our thumbnail strip down here. It opens up in Photoshop, and I'll just do one little change here. Okay, a little too green, but we'll back it down a little bit. Okay. And all I do is File, Save. That's it. File, Save. When we come back to Lightroom, there it is. So it's not as red as it was before, is it? It's created a TIFF. So now we have our original and we have our TIFF. So there's the original. There's the TIFF. So it's going to pop back up. And all you do is hit Save. If you're coming from Lightroom to Photoshop, just hit Save. Good question. Okay, how do you flatten? So you just go to Layer and then Flatten. That's one of the ways. That's an easy way. So Layer, Flatten. Think I need to flatten my layer? Let me go to Layer, Flatten.